Hi, my lovies. This is Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC Universal Spirit Podcast. We are now into our third season, and we are talking about my ultimate favorite subject, astrology, planets and movement, and how astrology ties into our mainstream society nowadays, and basically the origins of astrology, why it is so important to spirituality, why it is so important to science, why it's so important to our culture, especially because people are divided on whether astrology is even real or not. I am a very strong believer in astrology. I've been studying it since I was about 10 years old. It is the most fascinating thing that I can be involved in, really. So you could imagine me 10 years old just like walking around telling people like, oh my god, like I could totally tell you're a Gemini, da 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 da, like just kids laughing at me and stuff like that, though they should have, because I just sounded ridiculous. But I never stopped studying astrology. It's always been one of my obsessions. Okay, so we are going to be talking about, just in general, some of the origins of astrology, why people don't believe in it, what it really is, and just some historical facts about it, linking planets to gods and goddesses, linking planets to really just astrological bodies and traits, even being surprised, like, some planets physical makeup actually can affect a personality, and as to why it is in fact in our mainstream society, and it's also very included in like dating apps, and just movies and TV shows, and a lot of jokes and a lot of mentions of it are very common now. So it is something that I am very fascinated about. It is how I started my spiritual journey. I started with astrology, and basically because I was just a nerd as a kid, just nerding out, always wanting to know about things about the stars, planets, aliens, and just other beings. I'm a very, very huge fan of like Men in Black type stuff. I even got the album for Christmas when I was a kid. My dad could see that I loved the stars and what the hell is going on up there. So we are gonna now speak on that. We're gonna definitely have a conversation today about that. So if we get to the basics of astrology and get to the actual definition, astrology is the study of movements and relative positions of celestial bodies, interpreted as having an influence on human affairs and the natural world. Basically saying that the stars and planets and moons that you were born under determine who you are, how you act, and certain personality traits that you will share with people who were born at the same time as you. Okay, that the planets in the universe and the stars basically create you. You are a creation in itself. Obviously, you have your own thoughts and personality, or your own choices and everything like that. However, they're basically universal forces that basically govern how things will play out, or at least how things will be decided. In other words, the universal guidelines to who you are and how things are going to go based on who you are, based on the structure of the time you were born. The planets that rule you, basically, and how they move and how they affect you in a lot of positive and a lot of negative ways. In early Egyptian astrology, they had been studying astronomy at first, just the movements in general of stars, the patterns of the stars, the movements of the planets, and also clouds and the movements of the clouds. They started to understand that their astronomy, their mastery of astronomy, they were able to figure out weather, season changing, in where like not to plant crops and what would be a good time for, gatherings, events, worshiping gods and goddesses. They started using the stars and the planets to time things correctly, knowing which times are more favorable than others, like doing things during the Leo season rather opposed to doing them during the Taurus season, which is a lesser, passionate time or whatever. But as their study evolved, they started to see how these stars and planets affected people. They noticed people born during this season would act this way, so on and so forth. So in early Egyptian astrology, they started to believe that it would affect the masses, so to speak, where it's like they were the first ones to calculate what a retrograde was, when they noticed when Mercury had been flashing in the sky. However they were able to figure this out. I'm not gonna lie, there's always a talk about alien technology back in Egyptian times, but they were the first ones to coin Mercury retrograde as to every time this planet started to flash out of control, people started to act crazy, irritated, angry, breakups, disasters, things falling apart, people not showing up to work, just complete chaos, and just like, all right, there's got to be a tie between Mercury and all this fuckery, right? Like there's something going on with Mercury that just does not like us, and apparently it seems to happen more than once a year. Okay, so we got to keep an eye on Mercury, because we're starting to see that it turns literally everyone into a fuckface. Okay, so and then like disasters happening, plans being canceled. Like you literally have to picture that in your head. Ancient Egypt, there's a huge ball happening on the 25th of March, and then the retrograde happens like on the 1st of March, and then plans are shattered, people don't show up, the play is horrible, the lights go off, like it's all terrible. Okay, so they were able to understand that the planet movements have a huge effect on people. But when going back to saying people born during this season and that season, they were able to keep very detailed records of people who were born during these seasons and all their commonalities. So if they were able to trace people born between December 23rd and January 19th, which is Capricorn season, they'll notice like all of the children who were born during that time grow up to be entrepreneurs, really good with money, really serious people, kind of antisocial, very intelligent, creative leaders. So they're kind of like, hey, this time breeds this type of person. Okay. And then this time, during Leo season, leaders, fiery, very likable people, very, very cunning, and, oftentimes very, attracted to themselves, so they were understanding that people born during this time would breed these types of people. So the ancient Egyptians, really evolved their study of the stars, not just for weather. They started to realize how it's like a universal forecast, so to speak. And we still use that today when all astrologers, psychics, witches, mediums who rely on, the stars to do certain magic or, have certain events or praise certain gods, that they use what we call this universal forecast. People still use the word forecast because that's an old ancient Egyptian term to describe, what's happening in the astrology weather. It might not be a good time to get married because, the Pisces star is not favoring you or whatever. So it became a really, really important tool as to predicting things such as marriages, births, war, prophecies, becoming prophecies being fulfilled, what the prophecies were. They would even know that when planets were fighting each other, they know people would be fighting each other. So if Mars was, opposing, Jupiter, you got a really good chance that Sagittarius and Aries, are not going to be having a good time during this time. Okay. Later on, the idea and the methods of astrology were moved over to Mesopotamia. They've then moved to India. Okay, these were written down in these ancient texts, like, wow, these stars really can tell us something. They're really telling stories. Then it moved to ancient Greece and Rome, where it is in fact most popular. When you go into a lot of Greek mythology, there is no such thing as not running into astrology. Okay, everything in Greek mythology is in fact related to astrology. The interesting thing about it is when the Greeks expanded, they actually brought astrology into the Islamic culture, where people of Islam started to actually calculate these planetary movements to have their cultural ceremonies, and also strategize war, and things like that. They took this science, so to speak, this spiritual, this universal science, or this planetary science, and used it in their favor. In fact, they used it against the Greeks. They were able to actually build on that as well. And then it moves on to China. And China had already had a setup of their own astrology system. Not only did they use stars, in fact, China is, in fact, one of the most popular, opposed to Western astrology evolved studies. So they were to focus on the sky, the planets and stars and the weather, but they actually was able to pinpoint how astrology affects us down here on Earth besides people, that it actually affects animals as well. Not only affecting animals, the traits of the animals are linked to the stars, which are linked to people. So we'll get into that in another episode, but I definitely want to keep that in your mind, because Chinese astrology is something that I am a super deep obsessed believer in as well. If you follow me on social media, I talk about Chinese astrology all the time. Okay, then we're going to move on to African belief of astrology. As you know, African Egyptian is the same thing. However, astrology being becoming popular, or becoming talked about from other African countries, came later. Though they have had it first, it did not become a worldwide known thing that it was being practiced in other countries in Africa. Especially, it became a known thing when the slave trade began. When slaves would be taken off, into ships, to the new land and everything like that, they were able to navigate to where they were going by using the stars. They were able to foretell or foresee what was happening to them long before it happened, but just by using astrology. It was very important that, people know how educated these African slaves were. They did have a very, very advanced idea of astrology. In fact, African tradesmen who were already freed before the slave trade were very skilled at navigating the world, navigating the map in the water, in the ocean, especially Africans who were pirates. They used the stars to navigate where they were going. So in African astrology, you can see not only do the planets map out what's happening up in the universe, how it affects us down here, but it also became like a map of the actual planet itself. So the planet Earth itself, was mapped out in the stars for them to follow. They understood the North Star. They understood the Big Dipper. These were actually things that were coined from Africans, just later translated into Greek and Roman and other languages, but they all originated from Africa itself. So now that we have gotten that out of the way, right? We got 15 minutes here, I guess, of history. So which planets are we talking about, right? What counts in our solar system to be relevant to the study of astronomy and mostly of astrology, right? We can calculate that there are, in fact, 12 astrology signs. Okay, so then you would have to assume that there are 12 planets that we are drawing from, which is in fact not correct. It turns out that one planet can govern 2 astrology signs, that these planets have different traits in itself to then govern two traits of two different people. For instance, Venus. Venus governs the astrology sign of Libra and Taurus. Taurus is considered an earth sign, as Libra is considered an air sign. So that would mean that Venus can foster two different personalities, two different traits, however, dividing them into two separate people. Okay, so it has the ability to then be an air sign and an earth sign, for Libra and Taurus to be completely different people. Being governed by Venus, the things that they do have in common would be the love for money, or at least the love to be around luxury, art, beauty, loving the idea of unconditional love, and just, being in the presence, if not being like the best friend, to, experience and not only give unconditional love. So those are the two, similarities that they do share. The difference is that Taurus is more of a down-to-earth type person. They don't do too much dreaming. If they can't see it, smell it, touch it, it's not real. And a Libra loves to dream and go above and beyond and visualize things that aren't there, and sometimes have, delusions of grandeur, so to speak, not to be harsh, but also not only dream big, they have hard times making decisions, and sometimes they are very unaware of things because they are an air sign. Not that they're air-headed, it's just that they can be very unaware of things that are right in front of them, which Taurus is the exact opposite, and yet still ruled by the same planet of Venus, just as an example. All right, my lovies, so the last part of this podcast, we're going to dive into all 12 houses of the zodiac. So since there are 12 zodiacs, 12 astrological signs, so to speak, you can say zodiac, you can say astrology signs, whichever one. There's 12 of them, but there's also these 12 houses that govern all of us. So when one person is born, there is 12 houses to each person. So each of these houses has something to do with our personality, our life path, the way we think, the mistakes we're going to make, our inner demons. These 12 houses have been set up from early Mesopotamia, from early Egyptian records, that we are all made up of 12 houses. Of course, it's like the things we see, how we feel, and all this other jazz, or whatever. So I'm going to go through each and every one of them because I find this very fascinating, because it seems to cover basically everything about us. And being that there are zodiacs that rule each of these houses. So that means you could be born a Capricorn in January, but your first house could be in Aquarius or something like that. And then that determines, what you see or whichever. Okay, so I'm going to break it down to you as best I can. I am going to give you a little bit of a hint to me in particular. So since we are all born of 12 houses, it turns out my astrological chart, 4 of my houses in my personal birth chart happen to be in Sagittarius. So I make that joke all the time, and I tell everybody, hey, listen, I'm a Capricorn, but don't forget, I got 4 houses in Sagittarius. I'll snap out, do something crazy. I'll sleep like a baby. I'll ghost you. I'll do something wild, and 4 houses are going to support the wild shit that I'm going to do. I'll say I'm going to do something and then never show up. I literally have 4 houses in Sagittarius. I have 4 chances or 4 ruling things that will support my craziness, right? So technically 3 out of 12, I'm technically 1/3 Sagittarius. Okay, so keep that in mind, guys. Definitely when you read your charts of yourself, definitely does some explaining as to why you are the way you are. It's very fascinating. And you guys who follow me on social media, I am super obsessed with my Scorpio rising, but we will talk about that later. So let's dig into the first house. The first house rules what people see and the impression that you give. It's basically the house that's technically unbeknownst to you. Okay, some people say that this is your rising house, the sign of the rising sign where you were born. You might be responsible and do this and think and this and this and that, but you may go off and give people another impression of you. So that's the first house, what people see and the impressions that you give off. The second house is your assets, your finances, and the things that you value. So this is going to be how your relationship towards money, your relationship toward things that you hold dear to you. This would be like your stamp collections, or your Star Wars collections, or as to why you like this so much. There's always a link, to who you are, to the things that you do in fact become obsessed with. So this is like the house of value, the things you value the most. Then we come to the third house. It says your potential to learn something and your local neighborhood. Okay, so it's kind of like this is the house of you being open to things. How open are you to things? How closed-minded are you? What is it that motivates you to learn? What is it you're, wanting to know? Why are you wanting to know that, and why are you drawn to those things? Why are you closed off to certain things? What would make you, what would you go after, basically? Okay. Then there's your fourth house. That's your home and your roots of your being. This is always the most interesting house. Okay. Because it's like how your home looks, how you look, how you see the world, regardless of how it was told to you. It's just basically how you see it and your home. And when you get home, like, what does your home look like and how it reflects you? You know what I mean? You can learn a lot about yourself by looking around your home, basically looking around what exactly your standards are. Your home is a reflection of your standards. And that is a really big deal. Roots of your being really is that you are treating yourself the way you feel you want to be, or you think you should be treated. Very eye-opening house in your astrology. So you get to the fifth house, which is where you have fun, romance, and create things that you are proud of. Basically, like your private stuff, like your highest hopes, right? It's kind of like, who is your fantasy boyfriend? Who is your fantasy girlfriend? How do you express love? How do you express yourself artistically, singing, dancing, and all those things affecting your self-expression. How is your wardrobe looking? How does your hair look? What is your favorite color? What message are you trying to send by the visuals you send out? Okay, I love that house as well. People try to keep that one in balance the most. See which sign you have in your fifth house. That would explain a lot about your love life. All right, your sixth house is the work, health, and duty area of your life. So how well are you keeping up with things? How disciplined are you at work? How disciplined are you with your health? Are you into yoga? Do you into eating right? Are you into staying healthy? Do you sleep enough? How well do you handle this house in particular? Which sign rules this house? Because if it's ruled by someone like Virgo, you would be a super, super healthy, disciplined person. If it's ruled by, Taurus, you might not be so inclined to, being so serious about your health all the time. You might, cut corners a lot and just not really discipline yourself. You just keep it at the bare minimum. Okay? So just as a for instance, check out your sixth house. The seventh house, this area of your life is about long-term significant partners, romantic, business, and family. So these are your long-term ideals, the things that you want to manifest, until old age, the things you're working towards. So when you're at work and you're saving money and you're collecting paychecks, what is it are you collecting it for? You want to go on a huge vacation, you want to save money so you can leave the country at some point and live your best life in Paris. This is what your seventh house is all about. What you're really working for in life, what your life purpose is. What sign is governing that? That's a good one. Very interesting to know. What your life purpose is and who you want to take with you and how well you are keeping, people in your life. All right, so moving on to the eighth house. This transformational area of your life is about shared resources and intense emotions. All right, so that's about who you take care of, who you let in, who knows the deepest, darkest parts of you. Okay, that one is technically a no-brainer, right? It's kind of like, who is important to me enough to let them know I'm feeling this way, this, that, and the other thing. Who is living in my home, right? That's your biggest boundary of to who gets to know this about me, right? Who gets to stay in my home and share this space with me, especially when you're thinking about a partner, or getting married. It's like, how do I determine who's good enough for me? Check out who's in that house, guys. That's very important too. Your 9th house, broadening your horizons, either spiritually, academically, or on a long journey. All right. So this is you, not say against the world, but this is you up against the world, right? Understanding your place. Okay, and understanding how you're going to navigate through the world, how you feel about that, being extroverted or being introverted. Check out your 9th house. That's interesting to know for all you introverts out there, to understanding as to why it's like, I just don't want to be around so many people physically, but I would love to float around in the sky. All right. Now we're moving on to the 10th house. Your achievements and status in the outside world. How important are they to you? That's a good one. 10th house, right? What are you trying to do? You're trying to be TikTok famous? Some people rise to fame based on the zodiac or astrology that's in that house in particular. Some people have a blessed 10th house. Some people don't have a blessed 10th house. Some people have a very laid back 10th house where it's like, I'm okay with this for now. I'm okay with this for the rest of my life. Or people who strive really, really hard to be famous. You could have, Leo in your 10th house, and it's kind of like, no, I need to be in the spotlight, period. And that's it. Okay. Very interesting to know that. All right. 11th house, where the cosmos grant wishes, luck, friends, and social occasions. So this also determines about introverted, extroverted things and destiny as to where you're going to be meeting up with people. Okay, basically destined situations. I got lucky to start in that role, and people did not know that movie was going to be a great hit. I just happened to be in it. I did not know that I was going to be late, for my meeting, but then I ran into my husband, and I did not know it was my husband then. Okay, this is about destiny, and designed timing for you, for very interesting parts of your life that obviously you will tell stories about. Okay, these are the events, like major events in life. All right. Last but not least, we come to the 12th house. This is the area of your life that is overwhelming. You yield to a greater cause or power. All right. So that's the last 12. That's the 12th house. So that is you giving up, to something else higher than you. It could be God. It could be the universe. It could be nature. It could be anything. For those of you who are into, the 3, the lower, present and higher self. You could be giving up to the energy around you. You could be giving power up to the ebb and flow of life, having faith in that. Really, what is it that you in fact surrender to? When you are in fact overwhelmed, do you pray to Jesus? What is it that you are really giving up power to? Is it another person? Is it people? Is it authority? Is it just a friend? Or, who is it or what is it that will be taking over when you can't take control at that moment? Who do you put in front of you? Do you work hard for money, so money can take care of you at some point? That is a real thing. People do, in fact do that. So those are all the 12 houses. Those are the interesting facts and beginnings of astrology. So I really, guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please let me know your thoughts on that. Please let me know if you found any other information as to the origins of astrology and astronomy and how they tie together. This was just a little intro to what we're going to be talking about next. We will be talking about individual planets, individual zodiac and astrology signs, their traits, traits and all that. And like I said, how we have injected those things into modern society. And as you can see from the beginning of this podcast, how astrology has basically, walked around the globe. And now it's kind of like spiraling into, everything that we do. It's no secret. It's no, anything that we don't know by now. I just thought I just have a little, intro podcast to really what it is and how beautiful it is to be part of a universe that has so many, interesting and, awesome working parts to it, and also to understand that you have all of these interesting, beautiful working parts to you, how it makes you. It's like all these little tiny little atoms, these little pieces of, information and pieces of, movement and life that just make one person. Like it's such a fascinating thing, that a universe that we live in. All the crazy little kinks and things that make me want to make these podcasts anyway. It's got to be those 4 houses in Sagittarius that make me want to talk, even though if nobody's listening, just the need to do it. So if you have any comments to comment on, please comment, please download, please like, share, follow, and subscribe. My website is www.karmaseyepsychic.com and also www.karmaseyesuniverse.com, where you can get all the latest podcasts. Please let us have these conversations. Let's talk about it. We will get to most liked, most disliked zodiac signs. So comment down below. Definitely follow the podcast. We come out with an episode every week. Again, this is Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC on Universal Spirit Podcast. I will be talking to you next week. I hope you enjoyed that. I love you, and I will see you later. Bye.